Hey, runners of the internet, Coach Nate here. Today we're talking about how to change your run technique and the best time to do so. So if you're all panicky, slow your roll. We'll get into what you need to do and how you need to do it. Now, it doesn't matter if someone has told you that you are a heel striker and that you need to make a change, you've seen your race photo and you want to make some sort of change, or you're dealing with some sort of injury right now which you think might be related to your run technique, or you just think you could actually improve your efficiency and go faster. There's a right way to doing this thing, and we're going to talk about that right order of operations. But just as a setup for this thing, when we make our changes, we want to make the right kind of changes first that are going to lead to lasting, sustained change that happens consistently over time, because this running technique thing is not some arbitrary combination of movements that we have to really teach ourselves. It's kind of like breathing. We all knew how to do this as babies. We're all, born for it to a certain degree. And a lot of the techniques and changes and exercises we're gonna go after in today's video are gonna help remind us what those natural movements should be looking like. So that's really, really important. We're not going after weird arbitrary stuff. We're getting tapped back into what we're really good at doing. Now, oftentimes when we think about a run technique, or when people are examining your run technique, they're looking at down here. They're looking at what the foot's doing when it hits the ground, and those are the areas that we want to see the biggest change. Some of you may have been told you're a heel striker, or this foot is striking way out in front of you, and to a certain degree that can be an issue. If my foot's going way out in front of me, I'm putting a lot of excessive force potentially through my heel. The way my shin angle is, if my foot's landed here and my shin's pointed back this way, that means that my whole body needs to go up and over before I go and do ahead and do that again. When I'm going down a hill, I might want to put the brakes on to stop and change. So it's not to say that braking is bad. We just want to make sure we're not excessively braking and causing that wear and tear. If you're that person that does this and all of a sudden arbitrarily you start to try to shift up onto your toes or another part of your foot without really understanding why your foot hits the ground that way, you're really going to change one problem for another. So we want to make sure we understand that our foot is at the long end of this kinetic whip that starts further up in our torso and our hips. And the way I want to start is actually top down as opposed to bottom up. I want to start with posture. So I want to think about my shoulders connected over my ears connected over my shoulders, hips, knees to ankles. I can start thinking about how I'm breathing. I can start thinking about how I swing my arms, because my arms are connected to my legs. I want to make sure my hips are in the position they need to go. I need to understand how I push as well as pull up off the ground. I can understand if I connect those two things, that is my cadence, that is my turnover when I run. And if I start to take care of all those details, guess what? Your feet are going to start to land naturally underneath you where they need to land. So obviously that was a very big overview of our run technique, but understanding that big picture is really important so you know which strings to pull on to improve your particular situation. In the next clip, I'm going to share with you some of my favorite go-to drills to get started with this thing. Now I'm going to share with you some of my 3 favorite run drills, which are a really great way to start and also to reinforce the key principles of good running technique. First, we're going to start with posture. We're going to start up nice and tall. We're going to be nice and upright here, getting out of this hunched over position that we tend to fall into during a lot of the day. Believe it or not, you may start here with your run, but you end up going here at some point, and this creates problems further down. So just even being here is really, really big. What I'm going to focus on particularly are what my hips are up to. I almost said my heels. My hips are going to be rocking back and forth. And this is showing me that when I generate or create any types of movement, it's actually some sort of disruption of balance. I'm balanced over my feet right now, but when I shift my hips forward, all of a sudden my center of mass goes forward and I have to catch myself with my foot. I do that enough, that's creating forward momentum for walking and, yes, for running. So just by understanding that, hey, I can drive my hips forward a little bit, that will help me out. The other key thing about this hip position, when I drive my hips forward, I'm actually getting my glutes engaged a little bit. That helps stabilize the hips. This sets me up for later on when I'm running, better hip extension, because if I don't have my hips forward, I can't extend my legs out the back. So that's why we start with posture. That's why we start with hip position. So starting with 10 heel toe rocks, and then all of a sudden I can just off to the races. Second thing we're going to focus on is going to be a pulling exercise. And what this is going to do is reinforce and understand that I don't just push off the ground when I run, I actually also pull my foot up off the ground too. So there's a pushing moment and there's a pulling moment. This is like really like riding a bike. I don't just push over the top of the pedal, I pull up and back. It's very circular in that respect. And when I do this little pulling drill, what I'm really focusing on is, again, engaging my hips and hamstrings a little bit more to pull this leg up here. So instead of just pushing off, as I said, or not even as much driving the knee, I'm really thinking about pulling my heel up here. And I can even think about running in place, trying to pull this leg right up the inseam of the other one. I could do 10 on the other side, and then I could go 10 back and forth if I wanted to. If that seems a little confusing, take your high knee, take your butt kick, and split the difference. You're just going right up the middle. So heel toe rocking, that drill is a great way to add into the middle of your runs, that pulling drill, doing 10 to 20 per side. And then finally, the last one to get started, just to get our feet and our ankles ready, we realize that when we run, our feet are basically loaded springs. It's actually not that cushion, that little piece of foam, thick piece of foam nowadays, that's gonna make a huge difference for you. It's actually how your body is set up to really take on that load. So I want to think about being tall, shoulders relaxed, knees just slightly bent, and what I can do is just bounce here, where my heels are just kissing the ground lightly, and notice I'm not stiff, right? I'm here. And then I could start to even drive my hips forward, off I go. I could even start bouncing. See, Nora's getting into it. I could start bouncing here. I could start to pull my feet up, off I go. So you can see posture, hip position, pulling, and that springiness. I can start to add those in the beginning of my run, my end of my run. In the next clip, we're gonna talk specifically about how to do just that. Now, these drills, they are kind of like those belly breathing exercises that we can do, or we should all be doing at one point or another. It's not a totally foreign concept or movement. It's just a reminder of what we used to do as babies. We used to be really good at breathing deep into that diaphragm. So by adding these in, it shouldn't be this super funky, weird, foreign thing I've never done before. It's like, oh yeah, this is how my body likes to move. I just want to get back there and I want to remind myself of that. So staying on that little reminder piece, so much of how we move is connected with our brain. We got to get our brain on board first before our body is going to follow. So from a habit standpoint, in the first 10 minutes of your run and the last 10 minutes of your run, I want you to pick one of these drills. I want you to add it in. And I just want you to be very, very thoughtful there. So you could start the first 10 minutes, maybe stop every couple of minutes, try that drill, go on again. I'm not giving you super specifics here. I want you to play with this. The same thing with the final 10 minutes. If you're doing a long run, I want you to maybe check in every 20 to 30 minutes, or if you feel like you're losing something, and you know what I mean. You start in that airplane seat, cross-country flight, you're all upright, half an hour in, you're like, oh man, an hour in, you've gotten even worse, right? So I've lost something here. I need a little pattern disrupt, so I'm gonna stop for a quick second, do a set of 10 squats or 10 push-ups. You'd be like, why, Nate, why am I gonna do that? It's like, well, it's not running, and it's gonna get your shoulders and your hips fired and back in aligned, and then add your run drill, and then off to the races you go. If I do this on the regular, this is incorporating this type of run form work into my running lifestyle on the regular basis. I'm making consistent changes over time. My body likes gradual adaptation. It doesn't like sudden shocks to the system where I've totally thrown out everything I know and I've trying to adopt something totally new. That rarely works over time. So if I start to do this, I'm gonna be on the road to success. Now, for those of you who are convinced you do need an overhaul, and that is appropriate every once in a while, I'm gonna talk about that in the next clip. Now, if you are convinced you need to do that overhaul, you really need to start over, well, listen up and promise me this. If we're doing this, we're not doing this 4 to 6 weeks before a major race. like I made the mistake of doing 15 years ago when I started to change a bunch of my running technique in the middle of a 16, 18-mile run. Did not go well. It was terrible. The best time to do this, if you're thinking about this overhaul, is maybe after your race, maybe in your off season, and or a time where for the next 4 to 6 weeks, you can really commit to cutting your volume back by more than 50%. That is right, 50%. It doesn't matter if you're only running 10 miles a week or 15 miles a week, I still want to see a 50% cutback, because what that's going to allow you to do is give your body the opportunity to really ingrain all these new movement patterns without letting things get too funky and weird, and let your body really adapt and make some changes. If you're that person who's injured and you're dealing with a lot of, running injuries potentially related to your running technique, that might be an appropriate time to play with that. And we actually have some great programs over in the Run Experience, and specifically the training club, that could really help you do just that each and every week, also including strength and mobility in there as well. It's just so you can be really strong and really healthy. So remember, 50% cutback for all of you guys. Don't do this right before a race. Now, just a quick shout out on footwear when changing your run technique. It's good to mix it up a little bit, and it's good to spend some time in a shoe that's gonna be a little bit more of a teacher. And what I mean by being a little bit more of a teacher is that a shoe that actually kind of gets out of your way, gets you lower to the ground, and actually gets you feeling the ground a little bit more. I run in this shoe a couple times a week. I don't really put more than 1 to 3 miles in it tops. This is a strike interval, but there's a lot of shoes out there that are low platform, maybe a little bit of cushion, but a far cry from the higher cushioned, higher stack height shoes you're seeing these days that rightfully so are those ways to give you that much more cushioning and protection. Just on the run technique side, we don't want that cushioning and protection. We actually want to feel the ground. I love talking about running technique, and I'm very passionate about it, and it's why it's in all of our programs. And if you want to see what I'm talking about, you can click the link down below in this video and get a 7-day free trial to the training club, where you can see exactly how we put different running techniques, strength and movement into all of our programs to make you a better runner. Of course, if you like this video, give us the old thumbs up down below. That really helps. Drop any comments or questions, video requests, where you went running yesterday. We like to have a little conversation down in the comments section. Of course, subscribe to our channel. We want you to see all the new videos dropping each and every week, all designed to make you a better runner in some way. Speaking of, I'm gonna keep filming, so I'll see you guys in the next one.